Hi guys, and welcome to a new episode on this channel. Today we'll be talking about the civil rights movement. This time, no echoes and no microphone. So yeah, hope you'll enjoy this episode as you might have with my others. And let's get started with the cheesy beanies. How about that? Now, look at this. This is the civil rights movement. Now, this is the book we're going to talk about today. Firstly, when people think about civil rights movement, they all think about these black people and all that stuff. However, those weren't only the people who were in the civil rights movement. They were in the civil rights movement for the first few years, such as these black people and the Civil War. Then there's the Booker T. Washington for his lying. Ruby Bridges for the only student for a first grade class in a school for the whole year. And then Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks arrest literally every black person you might think of. Yeah. And there were loads and loads of marches. And then finally, there's Malcolm X, who was Malcolm X. So was part. How did his reds get lit? Red. How did his lips get red? Well, all right. Now Malcolm X was one of those people who are literally good at all that stuff, and I just want to say that Malcolm X. Sorry, wrong person. This is Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X was the guy who used violence more often, violence more than anything else. He decided that people should be segregated and that they should not be put together. And that is a very tough thing if you ask me, if you want to ask me. Oh, people's lips getting red. And the tobacco cancers and all that stuff were, well, and finally, a lot of people realized that these weren't just for blacks. These things weren't just for blacks, but it was also for all races. Americans, African Americans, Native Americans, American Indians, Hispanics, Latinos, Asian Americans, and American Indians. You name it. And then everybody here got a good education, and that was the best thing they could ever afford. The end. Or is it? No, it is not. A lot of people fought for civil rights movements, fought for civil rights. But that doesn't mean it ended a long time ago, all right? The civil rights movement is still going on today, and we will make their lips red. And now what I mean by lips red is my black robot. Now let's say that this robot right here that my finger's pointing at is one of those people who are racism. And then that astronaut helmet is anti-racism. So that astronaut helmet comes out and makes his lips red. His lips red. And that's how everything literally happens. So every African American, including some United States people, believe that the astronaut helmet would win, while this little puny guy will not. So much for edits. And that's how everything happened. There were a lot of things for protesting, like sit-ins. Oh, some light's not good. The sit-ins. They get color there. And some protesting, marches of protesting. And then speeches by Martin Luther King Jr. This one is him with the I have a dream speech, if you know what I mean. And then there's Malcolm X. The guy who was the best guy ever, who was really best at just killing and all that stuff. And also, he said that we should use violence when we ever could. And he was part of the Islamic people, the Nation of Islam. And then he left the Nation of Islam and then said, Africans, Americans, and whites should be together. And then he was assassinated by his own group, the Islamic Nation. And then one day, a lot of people started to protest after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. Everybody was starting to get their doubts on anybody. And everybody had their doubts about their lives and the life of the U.S. They believe that the life of the U.S. is still unfair. Yes, that is true. The life of the U.S. is still unfair. But however, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't live in the U.S. Sometimes some people are born in the U.S. and they are proud for it, even though they might be treated unfairly. And yeah. Still, try to make a living in anywhere in the world. Try to avoid some places where it's too out of control. But try to live in a place where you can live and the best you can afford. And that's my thing. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next episode. Shinhan, out! Bye bye.